Hello everyone, my name is Becca and welcome to Yellow Cat Studios. This is the first in a series of videos that I will be doing about sewing basics. I am by no means an expert, but I think I have learned a thing or two, so if you're looking to get into sewing, hopefully this can be a starting point for you. For this first video, I'm going to be going through 6 basic hand stitches, so let's get started. So the first hand stitch I'm going to be doing is called a running stitch. This is one of the most basic ones. All you have to do is weave your needle in and out of the fabric at an even pace. Or not an even pace, an even length. And pull it through. And keep going like that. A lot of people will mark their line so that it is straight as well. With the running stitch, you can do smaller stitches as well. You can use this one for gathering, tucking and mending, or just attaching your fabric, but it's really easy for gathering. You just pull your fabric along that stitch. The next stitch is a basting stitch, which is basically a running stitch. You just do it a little bit wider. About 1/4 of an inch long and 1/4 of an inch apart. This stitch is so that you can temporarily hold seams together before permanently attaching them with a different stitch or with your machine. Now the next one is a little bit more complicated. It's the back stitch, which is what I use most often when I'm hand stitching for attaching pieces of fabric together. So go into your fabric like the running stitch, and then go back so that your stitch overlaps, and on your wrong side go up further, pull it through, and repeat, meeting your previous stitch on the front side. So on the front it looks like single stitches, and in the back it overlaps. You can also do this where you leave a gap between your stitches in the front. I just typically meet my previous one, so you can leave a gap if you prefer that look. The next stitch is a whip stitch or an overhand stitch. They're very similar. So you're just going to go on the edge of your fabric where 2 edges meet, and you're just going to come over. The whip stitch will be at more of an angle than the overhand stitch. The next stitch is a blanket stitch. This is usually a decorative finish to where two edges meet. So usually you would use a thicker embroidery thread rather than regular thread. But to start this one, I'm going to go inside so I can hide my knot. Around to the back of my fabric. Go in and come up at the same spot that I first inserted the needle. Do that again. And go through this loop here rather than pulling it all the way. Then I will go to the back a little bit further from my initial stitch. Pull through, go through this loop again. And repeat. Through this loop. And I've definitely done something wrong on that first stitch there. Let me try that again. Okay, so I was going the wrong way. So again, start inside, come over to the back, come through where you put the needle in. You're going to come on this side, through the thread, move down a little bit, come up through the back, form a loop, go through, and repeat. As you can tell, this is not a stitch that I use very often, but it is a nice one to get that nice finished edge. On your side there. Most of the time when doing the blanket stitch, you'll go around the entire thing, so you'll meet your first stitch. So it's a different way to finish that. I don't have enough thread to do that. But if I were going to finish just like one edge, I would come back through this top loop, put the stitch back through here, end up on this side, tie it off on the stitch there. You can also clip your thread here to just actually tie it. You could do a couple knots and then just trim away the excess as close as you can. The last stitch that I'll be showing you is the ladder stitch, or the invisible stitch. So in this case, your fabric would be folded over like this. So this is really good for projects that you have stuffed, where you have machine sewn most of it, flipped it inside out, stuffed it, and then you have this hole that you have to finish. So what you're gonna do, with your edges folded over so that the raw edge is in the inside, line them up, you can go underneath to hide your knot. So you're on one side, you're going to go to the other. Put a running stitch in there. Pull that through. I have a lot of thread here. And it's going to look something like that. And then you're going to repeat moving to the other side. Your running stitch. Pull that through. And repeat going to the other side. Now what you want to make sure is you're not going through 2 layers of fabric. You're just going through 1. So when it's folded, you won't see it on the outside. And it's called a ladder stitch because as you're doing it, it will look like a ladder. Now, usually you'll need to pull this along as you're doing it, just because if you go too far without pulling it together, it gets a little bit tricky and the thread can catch on your fabric. So if you pull it tight, you can just keep going like you did before. And that is your ladder stitch. See how some of these are staying out? Just gotta keep kind of pulling the thread so that it pops in there. And this will be invisible on the outside of your project. And last but not least, how I finish off my hand stitching. I don't know if this is the proper way to do it. This is one of the ways that I do it. So I will go in, catch a little bit of my fabric. Typically, I will try to make sure it's only one side, so you can't see my needle on that side. Pull it through, not all the way, leave a little loop, go back through that loop, pull it tight, and I do this a few times. Sometimes I will do this on a previous stitch, especially on the back stitch, but I do like to anchor it to the fabric when I can. It just feels a little bit more secure. And like I said before, you can also, if you have enough thread left over, or sometimes you don't have enough thread to put it through and loop the needle back through a loop, so you can just trim it and then tie your thread together, do a couple knots, and trim it as close as you can. Some of the more decorative stitches you won't be able to finish like that. Like I said, the blanket stitch has another way to finish it, but that's just a basic one that I use for a lot of my hand stitching. Alright, so that is it for this first episode of my Sewing Basics series. Hopefully this helped. If there's anything in particular you want to learn about that you think I might have some know-how in, let me know in the comments. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this helped. If you're looking to jump into sewing, take this as your sign. Do it. It's so much fun. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!